first thing I would say is we should think about the minimum wage announcement, or rather the living wage announcement by the Chancellor yesterday. My analysis of it is that it is politically adept, sensible. In terms of the practicalities of it, I'd be interested in the problem with announcements is there is often a lot of work that goes into them, but you don't necessarily know all of that work. So I'm not saying the answers aren't there, but I'd be interested into this thinking. I was listening to Zoe very carefully talk about progression, and one of the reasons, in my judgment, why the link between sort of work and prosperity appears to have broken down is that it's that progression that people relied on. It's every year doing a bit better, moving on, that both emotionally and financially keeps you going. The minimum wage announcement, by doing that, we've got to be very careful that we don't effectively bring the people from the bottom up a bit and then leave them there for a long time. And that's how the companies pay for it. So we've just got to be very, very careful with that. In particular, we've got to be very careful with small and medium-sized businesses, because Deliveroo, for what it's worth, I think I know some of the guys there. They're doing great work. They're innovative. They are really a pioneer in this field, and I respect the work that they do. But not everybody can do that. Your typical small, medium-sized business, which lest we forget, does most of the employment in this country, pays most of the salaries, most of the innovation, most of the jobs created all come out of small, medium-sized companies. We've just got to make sure that not only, first of all, when we raise that minimum wage, I don't think it will lead to mass unemployment, because frankly we've got such a tight labour market that I think the labour market can almost certainly absorb it. But that we don't leave people stuck at that level for a long time, and that SMEs can afford it. And I think that that's something we need to watch out for. The broader thing I wanted to mention, which has been almost alluded to and discussed but around the edges, is really the role of the self-employed. What does that mean in our tax system going forward? Because what you have, and look, I have a lot of time for Philip Hammond, but when he was Chancellor, my impression, and from the times I spoke to him about it, and the impression I got from his policy choices, was that he felt, and the Treasury felt, that a lot of the growth in self-employment was effectively a tax dodge. It was a way of avoiding paying the tax that was due. That led to a series of regulations and things through finance bills that were trying to clamp down on that and basically make it harder for people to be self-employed, force employers to employ them. And with that, of course, they pay more tax, they pay NI at a certain rate. We all remember when the first budget, Philip talks about the NI rise and everything like that. So I actually think this is a profoundly wrong way of looking at self-employment. Self-employment is going to grow, it's not diminishing. This is here to stay. The rise of social media, the internet, Therese was talking about, apps, all of this stuff is going to lead to a growth in self-employment. You're like King Canute holding back the sea if in government you just say what we're trying to do is force everybody to be employed. It's never going to work. And what actually you'll do is drive people into the black economy, which means you won't get anything from them at all. And you will limit people's autonomy and freedom, which actually as Conservatives are meant to be about. So I think that we just need to, for the tax system, actively, proactively say, how can we help the self-employed? How do we help the self-employed? Sometimes it'll be companies taking on the sort of things that Deliveroo are talking about. That will work in certain instances. In other times, we need to help with pensions, auto-enrollment, how that all works for a self-employed person. Because if you're self-employed jumping between Deliveroo and Just Eat for 4 or 5 years in your 20s as you're trying to build your career, you're not going to build up a pension. Now that creates a public policy problem going forward. So we've got to think about pensions in that regard. Yes, tax matters, but I'm sorry, and I had this argument with the Treasury at the time on this thing. You, as a self-employed person, you don't get sick pay, you don't get pension contribution, you don't get various benefits. I think it's wrong to now say those people should pay the same sort of tax as people who are employed. I'm not saying anybody's quite suggesting that, and this is, we've got a new team at the Treasury, so, I'm sure they're looking at all this. But my point is, we need to actively embrace self-employment, not see it as a problem to be managed. fiscally. So that is something that I think we need to embrace and do. The only other thing I'd say is the Taylor Review was a really interesting piece of work. Matthew Taylor, I happen to know I'm a fellow of the RSA, and I've known Matthew for a very long time, and he is a really deep thinker who spent a huge amount of time thinking about this and speaking to people. I know that the government has responded to it, but we can do more, go further, and I'd like to encourage this government, either before or probably after an election, or will hopefully win, is to sort of re-turbocharge that whole agenda so that we can be a leader in the world, in the Western world, for dealing with this issue and setting an example for others to follow.
Fantastic.